welcome to this very special edition of the Armstrong Williams Show. You know, when you're a broadcast owner, newspaper owner, social media, whatever you call it, you read all kinds of comments from people. And then one of the most common things that I'm asked as a writer is, how do black men think as it relates to voting? Now, some would make the assumption that I'm a black man. Of course, you know, I see myself as a child of God and, you know, a full-blooded American, but I get it. But there's so much in this presidential election season that's about black men and their vote. For some reason, whether it's the Democratic Joe Biden, a Republican Donald Trump, whomever, they seem to think that the black man voting will be the margin of difference in this year's presidential election. So I was talking to Aaron, my executive producer, very able and very capable. How do we know what everybody is saying is true? Is there an organization that's in the universe that actually is putting time and resources to study what this is and what it means when we talk about the black vote? And so, lo and behold, my man Frank White, who's chairman of the board, he was at the time, blackmenvote.org, we got in this dialogue. I did a Summer Up North for them last year. And so I said, we've got to do a show on what it is, this sensation, this drive to capture the black vote. And is it that important? Is it overwhelmingly not true? Is it a fact that black men are swarming to Donald Trump? Is there any truth to that? Are they abandoning Joe Biden? Well, listen, we're going to have fun with this today because Joe Paul, who is the executive director of blackmenvote.org, is in our broadcast house. And we need to answer these questions. But first, let me ask you, what inspired the foundation of blackmenvote.org, and how has this organization's mission evolved to address the current challenges in the political engagement in terms of, the fact is, you don't care who they vote for. Your foundation says, just vote.
That's right. That's right. Well, first, thank you so much, Armstrong, for inviting us onto your outstanding show and giving us a platform to share how we're creating massive impact within the black community, particularly among black men. Black Women Men Vote was founded in 2012. You mentioned Frank White. He's still the chairman of the board. I'm happy to announce none of that's going to change. Bill Kirk and a couple of gentlemen got together and said, you know, after the initial election of Barack Obama, they thought, you know, the black male vote is fleeting. What do we do to make sure that we preserve the black male vote? And not only just preserve the black male vote, but how do we create a system where black men will constantly be educated on their rights, where black men understand how their voter registration card is inextricably tied to their economic development, where black men understand that they need to take back control of their communities, volunteer, give back. And so Black Men Vote was formed. And so fast forward 12 years later, we've evolved into a national organization that's focused on hubs where black men exist, where black men travel, where black men visit. We've started this program called Shop Talk. Now, you've heard these barbershop and salon initiatives before. What's unique about Black Men Vote's perspective is we've actually taken the barbershop and transformed it into a field office. We've taken the barbers and trained them up to be field organizers. So that way, you know, that removes us from building community trust within these communities, because you know better than most. It's hard to go into a community and try to transform it if they don't know you. If they look on the other side of that peephole and they don't recognize who's on the other side, they're not going to open the door, rightfully so. So we've engaged these barbers, these local field organizers who've built tremendous community trust within our community, and have trained these barbers to have meaningful conversations with their clients who they see once or twice a week, who I also trust and see once or twice a week. So that's where we are. We have 3 signature programs: Strength in Numbers, where our goal is to help 1 million black men register to vote. We have Black Men Engage, which focuses on the whole black man, not just civic engagement, but health, mental well-being, mental wellness. And then we have Rising Changemakers. We believe that we should get into youth and young adults early on and introduce them to policy making and making a difference in their communities. So that's a short answer for saying, here we are.
Can you share some of the success stories or significant impact that blackvote.org has had on increasing voter turnout or political awareness within the community?
For sure. I'll give you several. I'll start with Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. We've gone into Pennsylvania and transformed this VR machine. Now, Pennsylvania is known for bringing people out, but what we did differently was go into the communities and engage community leaders. Every community has an unofficial mayor. And so we went into Philly and found out who's the unofficial mayor. We engaged them. We provided swag to the barbers. We're planning a major event now for Labor Day where it's a black empowerment rally where we have elected officials, we have, you name it, people who are giving out swag notes, so on and so forth. Basically, the goal is to get folks registered to vote and committed to vote. And so that's where we are.
You know, as the executive director of blackmenvote.org, what are the main barriers you've identified that prevent black men from voting, and how is your organization working to overcome these barriers where you say, I don't care who you vote for, you need to exercise that privilege and that right?
The greatest barrier is this misconception that voting happens every 4 years. And so we've been driving home the point that your voter registration card is just as important for 4 years as it is every 6 months or every year or whenever there's a local dog catcher election or commissioner or attorney general, you name it, or sheriff. Helping brothers understand that that voter registration card can mean the difference between whether they have a trash can up the street or not, or whether there's a speed bump on their road where they have a child, or whether they have a disabled child who needs a sign that says, stop here, deaf child. So when we break it down to the nitty-gritty and help them understand, it's not just a 4-year thing. This is a way of life. You control what happens in your community. This card is a difference between whether you have access to resources and not.
Looking ahead to the next election cycle, what strategies are you implementing to ensure that black men are not only registered, but also motivated to vote? What are their issues?
You know, this is an interesting question. One of the shifts that we've made is from the messaging of vote, 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 or register to vote and vote, 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 which has shifted to now, okay, I'll register to vote, but now why should I vote? The candidate needs to represent my issues. The candidate needs to have policy that I can resonate with. Affordable housing is right up there at the top of the list. Economic development is up there at the top of the list. Health disparities, healthcare, access to mental health and mental wellness and well-being. Criminal reform, police reform are right up there as well. And so when we're communicating with brothers around the importance of exercising their right to vote, these are some of the issues that come up. And the thing that's going to get brothers off of the couch and into those booths is not necessarily a candidate or whether one is charismatic over another or one is more sleepy than the next. It has more to do with, do these folks represent my interests? The black male electorate is becoming more and more sophisticated. I think there was a gap that exists, if I will, in about 30 seconds. So we started off civil rights movement, rights to vote. Then we kind of let go of the mantle. Black women picked it up. Black women actually sharpened it and innovated and got a few things out of the deal. Supreme Court justice, vice presidents, several federal appointments, et cetera. And so now black men are saying, okay, well, great. Now we know we can be the difference between win or lose for many, many candidates. Now what do we get in return? Now what do the policies look like that you're pushing as a candidate? And does it resonate with our community?
Why do you think men, and this is men in general, are more open to voting in their best interest? It doesn't matter if they're Republican or Democrat.
Yeah, I think, speaking personally, I think it has a lot to do with critical thinking. Just looking and seeing, okay, it's not necessarily being allegiance to one party or one person. It's more having an allegiance to someone who has your best interest in mind, and there's nothing wrong with that.
What are the issues? Are there issues when we talk about black men? Are there issues any different than any other men in America?
No. Every black man in America wants a safe neighborhood. Every black man wants an opportunity to succeed and develop economically. Every black man wants access to the best schools. Every black man which is not any different than a white or anyone else.
So why is it so often for black men only it's reduced to race?
Yeah.
And not just economics, family, and safe neighborhoods?
Yeah. You know, a lot of it has to do with not having the right to vote, then having a right to vote, which transformed into a behavior of not voting. And then it got to the point of messaging matching the behavior of saying, hey, just get out and vote, as opposed to, here are the policies I stand for, candidate A, and here's why you should vote for me. And so those are the main issues. Now we've transformed to a point where black men are waking up. Black men are saying, hey, look, if they don't represent me and my interests, which is similar across the board, then why should I vote for them or vote at all? Now, we don't encourage not voting at all. And as black men vote, we don't lean on one side or another. We just help brothers understand the importance of that voter registration card and how that can mean a difference between them winning and them losing.
So let's come back to the real question. What are the most important issues to black men?
I'll say top 3, top 4. Right up there is criminal justice reform, police reform. It's right up there well, we'll do the top 4 and then we can break it down if we need to. Criminal justice, police reform is right up there at the top.
And when you say that, are you speaking of accountability and responsibility?
Yeah, absolutely. Accountability.
Because the crime disproportionately impacts their communities more than anyone else.
No question about it, right?
Okay.
There's no question about it.
Okay.
It does. And we all know that much like politics, crime is local as well, right? You're more likely to be impacted by someone who lives within that proximity. And most black people live around black people. Most white people live around white, et cetera. So we know that for sure. But I'm saying that just accountability, responsibility, safe communities is what every brother wants.
Continue with the top 4 issues. That's number 1. Number 2.
Criminal justice reform, police reform. Number 2 is affordable housing, right? We know one of the fastest ways to increase your net worth is through real estate, owning real property. Brothers just want a chance, right? And so you see banks being fined now for these unlawful practices of preventing brothers and sisters, men of color, from having access to real property by creating all these unnecessary barriers. So economic development, right? Affordable housing. Next is healthcare, affordable healthcare, access to health, health and wellness, mental wellness, which is also included in that. A lot of brothers just don't take care of themselves, right? And so now, which one came first, chicken or the egg, right? Do brothers not take care of themselves because they don't have access, or do brothers not take care of themselves because they don't care, right? I'd argue it's because they don't have access. I think what we've seen is once we educate the folks that we've been running into, they have a paradigm shift. They're able to adopt and say, okay, well, I didn't know that, right? And not knowing is a fair excuse if it's used only once. Last but not least, I'll say education, access to education, whether it's technical, whether it's the college route, just access to fair education, or whether it's local, whether high school or middle school that just needs better books. Those are the top 4 issues that we've heard around the country that as we've been engaging with brothers.
You know, when I come back, Billy, we're going to come back with another segment with you because I want to engage Billy Carson on this discussion about the vote and about these issues of immigration and the different political candidates, because it seems there's a mindset of change where many people just don't trust any of the political parties or the candidates. I'm Armstrong Williams. We'll be back. Don't go away. And welcome back to the broadcast. We're back with Joe Paul, blackmenvote.org, and now also joining us, Billy Carson. Billy, welcome back to the broadcast.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Where are you located today?
I'm in Boca Raton, Florida, at my home studio.
Yeah. So look, I'm gonna have a little fun with you today before we get to the issues that are you so familiar with. You know, my man here, Joe Paul, runs this blackmenvote.org, and he's talking about the black vote. It is more open, it's business, it's not about left, it's not about right. What are your thoughts when it comes to voting and the importance of it And do you have a perspective on why both parties are in hot pursuit of black men, because they seem to be open to what works best for them, not necessarily the parties?
Right, absolutely. Well, you know, I mean, some of my concepts and ideas on this topic are a little extremely eloquent, and I like his ideas and concepts, and also I like his perspective. It's just the biggest problem that I see with the voting system in America is that it runs off of the Electoral College. And the Electoral College has been a subject of debate and controversy for decades. You know, I think that it creates a situation where you have disproportionate influence, where smaller states have a disproportionately larger influence in the election based on the population size, and that each state can receive a number of electors that are unequal. And so you have a situation sometimes where you get a winner-takes-all system, which can create the possibility of a minority president, not a black president minority, but a person that the general consensus of the United States did not want to see in office due to this electoral voting system. And so it has a lot of downfalls. The system, you know, it's been debated for a very long time, and electors not bound by the popular vote in some cases are not legally bound to vote for a candidate who wins. And so you have a situation, I think, where sometimes people become president of the United States, but it isn't the general consensus of the true population of America. And I just go back to looking from the time I was a kid growing up in Miami in the ghetto. And I asked my mom when Jimmy Carter was running for president, I said, do you think that this city is going to become any better? You know, and she kind of chuckled. So what do you mean? I said, well, I just got a feeling that this is going to be the ghetto in 10, 15, 20 years. And sure enough, I went back to my old town just maybe about 2 months ago, and it's even worse than when I was there. Now they have a barbed wire fence around the elementary school. And so I think at the end of the day, the most important thing is what can we as a people do to unite? I think that the black vote is important, but also what can we as people do to unite together? I think there's a lot of division. The divide and conquer tactics have overwhelmed the black community, and that we need to stop having competition with each other and unite and organize and begin to create our own systems and put our own systems in place, clean up our own neighborhoods, develop our own projects and programs. And that's why every 4 years when it's time to go vote, I get in the line just like everyone else. But when I get to the front of the line, I write my name on a blank ballot and put that in the box, because I nominate and vote for myself as president of the United States every 4 years.
What do you say to what you just heard?
You know, a couple things. I agree and I disagree. I'm glad Billy's on here.
Challenge Billy.
So, Billy, I agree and I disagree. We agree on this point. We should absolutely abolish the Electoral College because it doesn't necessarily represent the will of the people. We're on the same page there. I do disagree that the vote doesn't influence the Electoral College. Yes, by law, some states just have to vote. The Electoral College has to vote based on numbers. What we're trying to do is get brothers into the behavior and the practice of actually voting. So that's been lost ever since black laws, slave code, which transformed into the civil rights movement, which gave us the right to vote. However, those behaviors were already in place, right? So why, my brother Billy, would you go into that booth and throw away your vote? I just don't understand why you would do that. What we're trying to do is redirect brothers' behavior to something more impactful, more positive, where they actually can go out and cast their vote for change. Now, the other thing, too, is it's not just every 4 years. It's not just a presidential habit. This is a daily habit. Brothers need to understand, and many of them do now, how their voter registration card is tied to their day-to-day living, not just some guy who lives in Washington, D.C. on 1600 Penn. So I agree with you, Billy, but I disagree on a lot of other points that you made.
He says you're wasting your vote when you stand in that long line and you get to the front of the line and you write your name in.
I don't believe it, because I believe that my life is predicated on my own actions. And I really don't care who's in office, to be honest with you, because every one of these oligarchs, every one of these leaders or rulers or whatever you want to call them, these lawmakers, they all leave what I call Easter eggs in the laws. They leave breadcrumbs, the breadcrumbs that they themselves follow to achieve their highest level of success and to enrich themselves. And so once a person becomes very aware of all of these loopholes and these situations and these laws and legalities and how to navigate them properly, how to set up your companies the right way, how to create tax shelters and everything else, you can live just as good, if not better, than them, and which I have done. I mean, I've become a multi-millionaire on my way to becoming a billionaire, and not really ever having to worry about voting for anyone except for myself, taking my own conscious control of my life and my family and building a legacy for my family, utilizing what existing laws and legalities that are already in place and navigating this financial matrix in a way that has set up generations for success down my bloodline.
Why can't both be true, Billy? Why can't both be true? Why can't you raise your family the way you want to, make $1 million, $1 billion, $1 trillion if you want to, have the free will to actually go and build a business, et cetera, and support and still be civically engaged and participate and cast your vote? Why can't both be true?
Because once I give away my power, then I lose it. I think that a lot of the times we're believing in this left wing, right wing. I think both wings are on the same bird. I think that all voters are led to slaughter. When you get to the end of that voting thing, they have a hatchet there to chop your head off, because both sides are in complete collusion and collaboration with one another, in my personal opinion. I just feel like once you relinquish your power, you give it away. I'm tired of giving my power away. I feel like I want to draw a line in the sand, and I want to say no and break this generational curse of giving away my energy and control and belief to some outside source instead of taking full responsibility for myself. And if I screw up, I can only look at myself in the mirror. Now, local voting, I think, is important. Let me make that clear. Sheriffs and mayors and so forth and all that, local voting, I believe that's 100% important, because that has a direct effect. But the presidential campaign, a lot of that is just, I mean, I might run for president because I can get a campaign fund and I can go show my face a few times and keep all that campaign fund money, which is what most of them do. That's why Bernie Sanders keeps running. I mean, so it's, at the end of the day, I think it's for them to enrich themselves. And at the end of the day, if president truly doesn't have true full power and control over the country, they can't even control Florida. If whoever's president can't tell the Governor DeSantis what to do, he runs the state however he wants to run it. He creates the laws he wants to see. He really can care less about the president. So at the end of the day, how much control does the president really have? I think the local vote is much more important than a presidential vote.
Well, I think there's as I listen to this, I think there's a much more deeper issue here, is that people becoming cynical about government and whether government can work for them. Because I think on many levels, if someone like Billy, it's true, doesn't matter who wins office, doesn't impact his life. But someone who's dependent on the government largest, who's dependent on the government benefit, who's dependent on the government salary, and the impact that government has on their daily lives, it matters to them.
For sure.
Who wins the White House or not. And what we speak to here are the majority of Americans. But it does seem, in reality, that poor becomes poor. You ask yourself how many lives absolutely prove as a result of whatever candidate they run for. And what Billy is saying, it's not that no matter what happens, his life stays the same or gets better. He says, I am the captain of my ship, is what he's saying. I create my opportunities. Now, the government may tax them and take as much as it can, but in the end, I still get to keep much of that. And I think the issue is, have we become too reliant on our government and not more reliant on ourselves, particularly when you talk about certain communities?
I think it's a combination, right?
Yes.
I think we should absolutely be allowed to go out and build our businesses and have access to wealth and continue to build. That's not a problem. I do believe that there is a fraction of the people who depend on the government.
The majority.
The majority,
yes,
right? For food, for shelter, for for wraparound services. And so, yes, to them, that vote absolutely matters. I think that we're fastly approaching a space where...
But it creates dependency.
In some ways, it does.
But in some ways, they sacrifice their own skills.
Yeah.
And sometimes their own morals.
For
their
sure.
own moral compass.
For sure.
For the government's benevolence.
For sure. Now, here's the problem, though, right? There isn't a space created for brothers and sisters who've been dependent on the government to actually crawl or climb or jump out of that space. There's not much economic development or loans being given out or or housing allowances that's being given out to brothers and sisters to get them out of that situation. There's not workshops within the hood, quote unquote, that's teaching brothers how to start businesses, how to overcome the digital divide, how to take care of themselves. I strongly believe that most people, especially people who look like us three, if you give us an opportunity, we're going to take it. Nobody wants to just rely on others to take care of them. I mean, first of all, that's not a man, right? It's not a,
But what if that's all that you know?
If that's all that you know, then the onus then becomes on us.
But doesn't the government exploit that and take
advantage
of it?
Of course they do. Of course they do. Naturally. If I can keep someone relying on me, that keeps me in power. If I can get you, just with the student loan issue, right? If I can get you to go to college and get this degree and you'll never be able to repay that, that's a modern form of indentured servitude.
And make you believe that I'm going to forgive your student debt, but you got to vote for me and keep me in power. It's just...
It's not a fair trade.
No, it's not.
It's not a fair trade.
And the young don't realize just what a warm drug this is.
Yeah.
It is. Billy, let us come back to you.
Yeah. Well, I think that, the brother's making a lot of phenomenal points, and I mean, I gotta respect him. And sometimes, if anything that I say seems abrasive, I'm not abrasive towards anyone that's on this view right now on this live channel. It's just, man, my opinion is, I'm really passionate about the fact that at the end of the day, we all need to look in the mirror. I mean, these programs that are missing from these communities are our fault. The reason why we have a boot on our neck is because of our own selves. We've all allowed these things. We've allowed all these illegal wars to take place around the world, from other people in $10,000 suits to become billionaires. And how do we allow it? Our collusion is our silence. Our collusion is our non-organization. Our collusion is our non-ability to collaborate and stop falling for the divide and conquer tactics and come together as one and create our own situations, our own unity, and our own programs. And it just hasn't happened because of this divide and conquer, this competition. I'm better than you. Now we have AI coming in, and AI is going to remove about 90% of the low-income jobs will be gone in 5 to 10 years. And there's nothing established or put in place or being put in place to help teach these people another way of generating revenue, because AI is coming and robotics is coming to take all the jobs, but they will not be relieved of their debt or their responsibilities. Their financial responsibilities will not be removed. So at the end of the day, we're going to make, again, the rich richer and the poor poorer, and people more reliant on government, and government selling a lot of promises that they never, ever really truly fulfill.
What we're going to do, we're going to take a break. We're not going to let you go.
I'm here.
We got to keep you, because we got to engage Billy. There's so much more to talk about here. This is the Armstrong Williams Show. We'll be back after these commercial messages. Don't go away.
It is easier to build up strong children than to try and repair broken men.
The streets are plagued with crime, violence. There's a lot of poverty, and it's all a result of lack of education that's happening in our schools. So it really is a crisis.
We come from very different political perspectives, but we've come to the same conclusion, and that is there is a crisis in the classroom. Children are being deprived of quality of life because they're being deprived of a good education. We must solve this problem. It's incumbent upon all of us to join hands together to get this done.
We can't afford to wait one more day before we address these issues, because every day we lose another child.
Let's stop the politicking. Let's stop the games. Let's really do something to give these kids a real chance at life and being a part of that American dream.
We need accountability for funding. Many of the districts where you're seeing very low test scores, students graduating with very low literacy and math comprehension rates, they are receiving a lot of funding. So where is the money going where our kids aren't being adequately educated?
If you believe every child is deserving of a quality education, please go to educationjusticefoundation.com. I want to talk about I want to pivot a little here with Joe Paul and Billy Carson. I really want to talk about scientific technology. But before I even get to scientific technology, I want to start with the digital divide, Billy, because one of my issues with the digital divide is the immediate access to real information and communication. And I think that is a really critical issue that we just don't focus on enough, Billy.
Yeah, we have a huge digital divide. We're talking about the fact that a lot of the information and the flow of information is absolutely controlled. Now we got a little bit of reprieve on the flow of information through social media, but now social media is so full of clickbait and fake news, and people passing on fake news as if it's real news. There's even more divide now because there's so much false information and invalid information floating around. It's almost impossible to distinguish what's real and what's not. And because people in general don't do any real research into any topic, they spend maybe a tenth of a second before they consider it to be valid or invalid, and then they share it or spread it verbally or digitally. And then with the media, most 5 corporations owning all the media outlets and really controlling the flow of information, giving us scripted news on a daily basis that's extremely biased and also agenda-based. They're really controlling us from every angle. The algorithms on social media now have really put people into a loop where the information that they're getting is a mirror of what they're putting out. So there needs to be a place where, or sometimes something established where people can get a true, real flow of information, knowledge-based, resource-based, and research-based information that they can trust and that they can go then themselves look up to get more information about. And people, I think, also need to be taught how to actually do research on information and topics before taking them and sharing the information.
Joe?
Yeah, one of the interesting points is there's a lost art. Even if you remove digital divide, people have lost the ability to think critically. How they access information and juxtapose that with other points is just a lost art. That's number one. Number two, the dissemination of misinformation is extremely powerful because of who the source is. Back in the day, there used to be, if it came from ABC, NBC, CBS, it's gospel. Now it's coming from cousin Jim or Auntie Frederica, and you get it and you're like, well, why should I research this information? It came from a trusted source. And so you assume that they actually did their research. Now, if we peel it back even further, the digital divide covers more than just access to information or misinformation, but it's access to technology, having the technical knowledge that's required to leverage these tools that give you access to the information, and more importantly, the internet access that a lot of people who look like you and I don't have access to, older adults who don't have access to the internet. And how is information passed through? It's through the internet. Now we have a new industrial revolution, this AI revolution, that's transforming everything. It's transforming not only how we do business, but it's transforming how we communicate. It's transforming how we share information. It's transforming how who's working and who isn't. Yes, Billy's absolutely right. The AI technology is supplanting millions and millions of jobs, but it's also creating millions and millions more. The cool thing about AI and what brothers and sisters need to get behind right now, because we're at this age, Armstrong, where long ago, when fire was still a thing, somebody came up with electricity. And there were some people who was like, I'm gonna still stick with my fire, right? While other folks took electricity and ran with it. Then fast forward to machinery. I'm gonna stick to my horses. I don't need this car. Then fast forward to the internet. I'll stick to my normal ways of communicating and getting access. And every single time we're being left behind. Now is the time for brothers and sisters to get behind artificial intelligence. You don't even need, the cool thing is there are no experts, just like there were when Mark Cuban entered the internet race. And now look, check out his checkbook. It's the same thing. Brothers and sisters have a rare opportunity to upskill themselves. Access to information has never been more readily available ever in the history of the world. And you now have AI technologies like ChatGPT that basically is the sum of human knowledge that you can leverage to do more than just write an essay or an email. You can do way more than that. It can examine contracts. It can, I mean, you name it. It's insane what we've been able to do and what we're doing even at Black Men Vote with artificial intelligence to help us understand data, to help us understand how to communicate to Black men, to help us understand trends and how to forecast how we communicate with brothers and sisters. So the digital divide is impacting more than just how we exchange information. It's impacting access and the tools and necessary support that's required for people who look like us in under-resourced, underprivileged communities to have access to AI to be able to thrive. It's here to stay. It's just like electricity. It's an undercurrent. It's happening right now, whether we like it or not.
You know, I think one of the issues when we talk about we, the people, is I think that many people don't understand how important the fundamentals still are. You need a basic education. You need to understand science and math and history and reading. You know, even for me, and I know Billy and you can relate to this, as a CEO, I don't think people really understand how much we work.
Oh my goodness.
And how much we sacrifice. I mean, my education is continuous every day. Learning the technology and what's out there when you get a notice from your phone, I want to do an update, iOS update. Mm-hmm. I don't just plug my phone in. I read to understand what that means. Right. Some people just say, oh, let it rip. Not me. I need to know. But to understand that, and I look at where I was a year ago, understanding all the tools on social media that I needed to learn. I mean, it is not easy, but once you get the basics and the foundation, it's like you understand basic math,
that's right,
basic chemistry, basic geometry. You gotta have the basics in order to move forward with how this stuff is developing. And so sometimes when you say, we gotta get with it, but if you're not in an environment where you're forced to learn, forced to continue your education because it affects your bottom line and it affects your being exploited because you know less than your own corporation.
That's right.
You can be taken advantage of. And so I think that there's not enough in reading. I have to read all the time. I spend every week reading at least 2 books, and it's not just a book on some novel about Frederick Douglass, something about C.S. Lewis and the Screw Tape Letters. I have to read books about math and algorithms.
That's right.
And then when I don't understand it, I got to go and Google because the learning tools are there.
That's right.
The tools are there to learn it if you're willing to learn it. But it's not easy, Billy. It's not.
No, it's not easy. It's a lot of work, and that's why a lot of people don't spend the time and the effort and energy that we, the 3 of us, do into research. And I agree wholeheartedly that, you know, AI is the future, but that technology is going to require a whole nother level of learning, a whole nother level of commitment, a whole nother level of research and understanding. And if you don't have the fundamental basis of basic sciences and mathematics and reading and so forth and so on, yes, you can struggle with that. Another thing that we have to do is we have to find a way to get a computer in everyone's house, because the majority of the young generation right now, they're all running around and their computer is their phone. Now, there's nothing wrong with having the phone as a computer. However, an actual computer, a laptop at least, gives you much more ability to utilize and analyze and do research, study, research, investigation, and also utilize some of these AI tools versus some of the limitations that a cell phone does have. And so that's another thing we have to do. But again, continuous research and investigation and study. I have a certificate in applied neuroscience from MIT. I just paid for another course in artificial intelligence, which starts in 2 weeks at MIT. And so, but it's this ongoing, nonstop learning and growing process that we have to begin to instill in the younger generation. They have to understand, forget instantaneous gratification. It's all about time, energy, and effort into learning things that are going to improve your life. And I think the biggest thing we have to do to get them on that right track, we have to teach them how to find out what they're passionate about. And then when we find out what they're passionate about, figure out what that means in the digital realm and engage them that way so they can begin to live their passions and eventually monetize their passion digitally, because then it won't feel like work to them and they won't mind doing the work and the research and the investigation and learning these AI prompts and everything else they've got to learn, because it's in the field or area that they're passionate about. So many of the youth have no idea what they're passionate about. They have no direction, and that's something that we really have to instill within the younger generation right now.
You know, I don't disagree with you at all, Billy. One of the things I do want to point out is we have to take the path of least resistance. The path of least resistance, from my perspective, is not necessarily to put a laptop in everybody's hands. However, to show them how the tool that they do have has more uses than watching videos on YouTube or calling someone, or right, et cetera. You can do so much with that tool, with that handheld device. Now, more importantly, if you look at it globally, most people have access to their phones than they do to a laptop, and that's literally their connection. And other areas have leveraged that tool, that handheld device, to do so many things, whether it's shopping, whether it's invest, whether it's banking, whether it's all those things. So I would argue that if we use these tools to train up the youth, so that way they can know, here's how you leverage what you have in your hand. It's not just about looking at music videos on YouTube. You can learn a language. You can learn to play the piano. You can learn how to tie a tie. You can learn how to build a business. There's so much that's accessible to you really in the palm of your hand. So it's not lack of access. It's really lack of knowledge. We've gone are the days where folks had to go somewhere to find an education, right? Now you have knowledge that you can actually seek, and you should. Don't just be fed information. Go out and seek information. Compare and contrast and understand where's that source of truth, because it's going to lie somewhere in between all those different things that you read. But I'm telling you, the best way to do this, the best way to combat this is to train yourself. AI is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. So let's make room for it, and by educating yourself and using those tools for good.
You know, one of the things you talk about, Billy, is understanding consciousness and how it's so crucial in today's world.
Yeah, well, you know, it's really crucial because this AI is a learning algorithm, and it learns off of the creators, or it's God. And who's the AI's God? We are. We're God to the AI. We are the creators of AI. So it's taking on an artificial intelligence, but that artificial intelligence is a fractal of the God consciousness. And what is the God consciousness? It's our mind, the human mind. And so whatever we feel and however we experience the world consciously is what the AI is going to take on. Any agendas, racism, inequalities, you know, our pains and dislikes, all the good, the bad, and the ugly is going to be inside that program, because it came out of the consciousness of a human being. And so since it's a learning developmental tool and it's learning every single microsecond, our job should be to continue to program conscious information into it. So what I do, at least once a week, I send it information from consciousness, books, information that gives it a more of a metaphysical outlook on life, philosophy, things that when I first started using the tool, it couldn't grasp the concept. Now, slowly, I'm starting to see that it can begin to grasp higher concepts of thinking through conscious thought that weren't there in the beginning. Now, of course, that's through also the evolution of the program, but it's the evolution of its learning capabilities as well. And so I think that if you have a program that's only coming out of the mind of a small handful of programmers, or the world at large, which is primarily a lot of NPCs, people just living in the matrix, I think the people that have a higher awareness, a higher work ethic, a higher level of thinking should be continuously putting information into the system and challenging it so that it can begin to learn and learn higher levels of thought and consciousness from us.
Hold that point. We'll be back. It's really evolving here today on the Armstrong Williams Show. Joe Paul and Billy Carson and I will be back. Don't go away.
As a home buyer, you need a lender who cares about your home ownership dreams. United Security Financial has been helping families secure their dream homes for 30 years. We're a national fair practice lender that provides affordable mortgages and low down payment programs to eligible home buyers. To learn how United Security Financial can help you secure your dream home, call 1-800-373-4186.
You know, one of the things that our guest, Billy Carson, does so well. He gives us these insights into how advancements in science and technology are helping us to explore and understand the nature of consciousness more deeply. And even as I think about how this conversation today has evolved, the one thing that is critical is that everything starts with the mind. And it starts with your self-respect and how well trained and how well prepared you are for life. One of my favorite quotes in life is from Abraham Lincoln. I will prepare myself, and when the time comes, I will be ready. The problem is, because you never know when the time is gonna come, you must be ready, because Billy, if not, that opportunity will pass you by. Billy?
That's a fact, and people miss out on opportunities every single day because they're not ready. Sometimes they feel that they're ready, but they're not really ready for the opportunity, or they can't discern the true opportunity as it arises. And what people tend to forget is that when you're trying to manifest your reality, you're trying to create a life that you want and you feel that you deserve, which everyone has the right to do, it's your birthright. A lot of the time they're thinking that they just have to hope and wish and beg and pray, and these things are just going to unfold for them. But in true reality, it takes action. And I have my own equation. It's CT multiplied by A equals M. That's conscious thought multiplied by action equals manifestation. You cannot get to recognize the opportunity or even get the opportunity to arise unless your thoughts are backed by actual action steps that you take to manifest that into reality. Once you go through that process of creating that formula into your reality, all of a sudden the opportunities will be attracted directly to you. You will be a magnet that draws the opportunities to you instead of you looking to chase opportunities or hope one just happens to pass you by. The opportunities will come your way, and then it's your job to discern those opportunities as what they are, opportunities, and realize that all opportunities are windows and doors that open, but they also close.
You know, one of the things that must have happened with you and your black men vote, or with any vote, is that making people believe that their vote matters, making them believe that there's something worthwhile that you can vote. You and I, in our lifetimes, have seen in elections where one vote won the election.
Indeed.
It was one vote. And it's the same with self-worth and self-esteem. You've got to value yourself, and having a skill set gives you the mojo. Sometimes people say, well, you're too arrogant, you're too self-confident. Well, when you have the skills, it's like an athlete like Caitlin Clark, a Don Staley, who, I mean, she lost one game last season, but she came back with a group of freshmen, and her team was better the year before, but yet she had the mojo to believe that no matter what was on the court during the 2023-24 basketball season, they were going to win that championship.
Yeah. You know, it's all in the state of mind, right? It starts with this right here. It's difficult for God to guide your steps if you're standing still. So first thing you got to do is believe that you can get from one place to the next. Then, just like Brother Carson said, that action has to be part of it. A lot of folks say faith without works is dead. I'm no preacher, and I probably need to go to church, but faith without works is dead. So what that simply means is you can believe that something's happening, but until you meet God halfway, meet the universe halfway, it's not going to happen for you. It takes you to take a step forward for the blessing or the opportunity to meet you halfway. It absolutely starts with how you see yourself. Because if you don't value yourself, how the hell can you value your vote? How can you value your neighborhood? How can you value the fact that trash is in front of your house? How can you value not having a job? You don't even think that much of yourself. So of course you're not going to see the connection between yourself and your environment because you're not even present. So it absolutely starts with how you think, not only how you think about everything else, but how you think about yourself. And you absolutely are what you attract. I'm living proof. You know, I grew up homeless, Armstrong. I've been on my own since I was 13 years old. And what that means truly is that I was in homeless shelters, I was in group homes, but I'm a college educated man. I've done pretty well for myself. And that has a lot to do with how I saw myself. I remember in third grade, Mr. Shirley Shatteen was my principal, black brother. But he would come in sharp. I mean, I used to wear the same clothes every day. This is before uniforms, I should tell you. I got some grades that qualify these stories, okay? So I used to wear the same clothes to school every day because I didn't have much money. But Mr. Shatteen This brother had the sharpest suits. He had the nicest jag. And in my mind, I knew for sure that was waiting on me. I knew that where I was not where I was going to stay. And it absolutely had to do with me visualizing a different reality than what I was actually living. And now the reality that I was imagining has caught up to real life. And it has more to do with me not expecting anyone else to be responsible for my life but myself. I don't blame anybody for my trials and tribulations. I blame myself if I didn't get up once I've been knocked down.
It tells me you found the God in you.
Indeed. We're all gods.
Billy?
Hey, that's powerful, man.
Powerful.
This is a great talk, man. I'm glad you brought me on here today because I got some inspiration. I got another perspective. See, I'm the type of person I like to learn from all perspectives. I want to hear everybody's voice. I want to take all the knowledge in, and I want to discern it for myself. And I definitely got some great perspective here today from both sides, no doubt. And it's really an enlightening conversation for anyone who's viewing and listening to this. I mean, you've got to have gotten something out of this conversation today. So hats off to you, Brother Armstrong, because your podcast or this show, this series that you put out, man, is really, I think it's touching and impacting a lot of lives in a lot of ways that people never thought of. They never thought they would even begin to ask deeper questions or dig deeper into themselves or learn more about these specific things, these topics that you bring to the forefront that are kind of the elephant in the room kind of conversations, and you bring them out all the time, man. So hats off to you.
You know, I know we're about out of time. You know, I have a simple philosophy. I don't really care about black or white or green or yellow. I care about character.
That's right.
And everybody is my brother and sister. Everybody. And I trust anybody until they give me a reason not to. But an unexamined life, as well as an unexamined political philosophy, is not worth following or leading. We have to do self-examinations of ourselves. And so no matter how much I may advocate what my truth is, if Joe Paul or Billy Carson takes me to a higher truth today, no matter what I've invested in, my truth, I would abandon that truth immediately and embrace what is the higher truth. Because it's truth that I seek not to be right, but to be a better human being. Right. And the beginning of knowledge and wisdom is when you can say, I could be wrong.
That's right. Paradigm shift, right? You have to be open. There's no right or wrong. I think if you're open to seeking knowledge and understanding that not everybody thinks like me, and that's okay.
That's okay.
That's perfectly fine. This person can disagree with me as long as we lead with two things, love and respect. Everything else is details. You're allowed to think the way you do. I'm allowed to think the way I do. I think at the end of the day, Armstrong, everybody wants the best for themselves, right? And the people around them. And if we continue to focus on what can I do to improve myself, everything else around us will improve automatically.
Billy, you got the final word.
The brother said it so eloquently. I just believe that you're right, that we are one true consciousness. We are one race of people, the human race, and that we need to stop falling for divide and conquer tactics. But the longer that we're divided and apart, the more that we can be ruled over and the boot can be kept on our neck. The longer that we can fall victim and prey to agendas and conspiracies. I think the best thing that we can do is learn how to love one another and have unconditional love for ourselves as well. A lot of people aren't loving themselves properly. We need to love ourselves so that we can love our neighbor and our friend. And with that being said, thank you for having me on today.
Yeah, but you know, the thing that we sometimes, it's often overlooked, is that because if you've never had love, you don't know how to love.
That's right.
If you never had a man in your life to show you what a man is, you don't know what it's like to be a man. If you never knew that it's wrong to steal or lie, then that's what you're going to do. Right. Character and leadership and examples matters. Thank you for joining us. I'm Armstrong Williams. Billy, Joe Paul, what a great conversation today. Thank you for listening. We're out of here.